Hey everybody, this is Sheila Ryan. I'm a cuddle ambassador with Shannon Fabrics, and today I am super excited about our Sew Together Live. So what we're going to do today is we're going to stitch up a onesie made from Cloud Cuddle. Now, before we actually get to the sewing part of it, I wanted to talk a little bit about Cloud Cuddle, about different patterns that you could use, and just some different things that you might want to think about when you're picking a project like this to make. So let's talk about Cloud Cuddle first of all. So Cloud Cuddle, if you haven't ever gotten to feel it, you might go back and look in the Shannon Fabrics YouTube for a cuddle conversation that Ajer Perello and I did about all about Cloud Cuddle. We talked about Cloud, what it could be used for, the way it works, and how to do some different sewing and serging techniques with it. But it's a really informative episode with lots of tips and tricks already. So today, what we're going to do is we're actually going to make a garment out of it. And you may have seen some of the videos that we've done where we've made a Cloud Cuddle robe, or maybe you've got to participate in a class where we were using Cloud Cuddle. But let me tell you a little bit about Cloud. So Cloud is a cuddle fabric. So it is a minky, but unlike regular C3 or Luxe Cuddle fabrics from Shannon Fabrics, Cloud doesn't have a whole lot of stretch. So it's a really lovely and double-sided minky. So I'm going to show up just a little piece that I have for you right here. So generally there's a print on one side. Okay. And then the back side is just plain white. So it's printed over here. It's very, very silky and it's super lightweight. Honestly, when I got tasked with the project of making a onesie from Cloud Cuddle, and I thought there's no way I would ever wear that. So the first one I made was actually for a smaller person. I made it, sent it in to Los Angeles, and then they were like, let's do it for a Sew Together Live. And I was like, well, that's not for me. Well, let me tell you, I'm a convert. So I made a Cloud Cuddle onesie that is my size, and I put it on fully expecting to be very uncomfortable and not able to cope. I don't like to be bundled up, and I don't like a lot of heavy things, and I get hot real easily. I do love my cuddle fabrics, and so just because I get hot doesn't mean I don't use cuddle, because I absolutely do, and I sleep with several cuddle blankets on my bed every night. I can't live without it. But as far as wearing a Cloud onesie, I was skeptical. Let me tell you though, I got this made and then I put it on and I did not want to take it off. So I was super excited. That was a serendipitous moment for me. So let me show you what I made. And I got to back up a little bit so that you can see the full, well, I don't even know if you can see the full thing, but I made this darling onesie. This is my size. So this is an adult extra large out of the Cloud Cuddle. This particular print is called Moonbeam, and it's one of our newest Cloud Cuddle prints. It's super cute, and the legs and the arms both have rib knit cuffs on it. The front has a zipper. It's got a fabric neckband, but the pattern that I'm using has the option to do it with a hood. So we'll talk a little bit about patterns in a minute, but let me just tell you how lightweight a garment made from cuddle is. It's not thick. It's still very breathable. And I, being a middle-aged menopausal woman, was very comfortable in it. So I don't know if that makes it more likely that you might make one of these, but I'm just going to tell you that I was okay in it. So it was super warm too. But it's just right. It's not overbarreling claustrophobically hot. It was exactly what felt really good. I was still very able to move and wiggle around, which is important to me, especially for a onesie garment that like covers your whole body. It's not like you can just peel off a layer. It covers your whole body. It zips all the way up. So super fun. So let's talk about this a little bit. So I made this one. I did make a smaller one, and you may have seen that on the thumbnail. That was a teenager size one. The picture that we had for the promo for it was made out of a plaid, and the plaid was actually a diagonal plaid. So when you're working with plaid, you know that you can match up your plaids so that they line up so it looks like it's going the right way, and it kind of has an aesthetic appeal to it when you're looking at something that's seamed with plaid. So that was a similar pattern that I used, and I'll show you which one that one is in our links Adriana is over in behind the scenes, and she's going to help me with some of these links. But I'm going to be showing you a few different patterns that you might use, including the pattern that I am using. I'll show you, tell you about where it is, where to get it, and all that kind of stuff. So the pattern for the one that you saw in the promo, which was on a background, a Christmassy background, and it had a plaid onesie on it. I use this pattern from McCall's. This is McCall's 7518. Okay, so if you have a place that sells paper patterns and packages, you might be able to find this one. This one is also available from the simplicity.com website. I know everybody was worried about where are they going to get their patterns now. Well, Simplicity has them online, and you can either get it as a paper pattern or you can even download the PDF, which I think is really exciting. Independent pattern designers have been selling PDF downloadable patterns for a while now, and I think it's really cool that a company like Simplicity, which has been kind of the staple for where we've all gotten a lot of our sewing clothing patterns, but they've entered that domain as well. Another pattern that you might be interested in using to make a onesie, and this may be a little bit, outside of the box thinking, but think about a costume pattern. So this is Simplicity 9840. Okay, so this is a set. That's a fairly chunky envelope because it's got sizes for children, size 3, all the way up to adult extra large, all in the pattern pack. It's a great value for a pattern, even if you bought it at full price, which there's lots and lots of sales. So this might be a pattern that you're interested in. And before you say, oh my gosh, that's got ears and that's got hood and all those things, you don't have to use all the pieces. On the back of the pattern, they will generally show you a lot of different options. So on this one, here's the basic suit, right? There's the basic onesie suit. And then it has options. Maybe you want a belly on it. And maybe you want the hood with the ears. There's all kinds of different options that come in a pattern like this. So that's why these are a really good value. So the one for this McCall's one, the McCall 7518, that first one I did, it had, you buy either the kids version or the adult version, but also the thing that comes in it, which I thought was super cute, was the puppy version. Do you see that little pup right there with his onesie on? And so in the, upside down, in the pattern, the puppy version is in there as well. And you can see that you could make this one with a hood. I did not. And so I did. I did do the hood on this one because that's the only way this one came. This pattern right here, the hood is a separate piece, but the onesie itself does not have a hood attached. Those are traditional patterns for the onesie that you might find if you had a store that sold paper patterns in envelopes like that you were used to getting. If you're new to the PDF pattern world, you may have seen groups like Patterns for Pirates or Rad Patterns. There's lots of different companies out there that they're independent designers that create garment patterns, and they sell them as a PDF download. So this one, the one that we're actually going to make today, is from Patterns for Pirates, and it's called the Funzie Onesie. Now I'm holding up my iPad because when I get a paper pattern or a PDF pattern that I download online, I don't always print it out so that I have something like this in front of me. I'm trying to save paper, and I'm trying to have some sustainable practices in our life. So a PDF pattern that you might get may not have the pattern illustrations that you're used to having, so that these patterns fit nicely in their packet and they have just a page of illustrated instructions. A PDF pattern generally will have photographs so that you can see very clearly exactly what each step is supposed to do and what it's supposed to look like. And so there is a lot of extra information that's included in a PDF pattern like this, which is why I really love them. Adriana has put up some links in the comments for this pattern, but also for a Facebook group full of other PDF pattern. The designers are in there. They're always talking about what patterns they have that are new, that are on sale. And there's also a lot of support. So if you're new to getting your patterns in the PDF way, there's lots of help for you in there. We'll talk a little bit more in a second. But the thing that I do is I save the tutorial file where I can access it, like either on my iPad or on my computer. Sometimes I can use my phone to access it, but I need to see it. I need a little bit bigger, so I'll use my iPad to show it. And this is just, I'm not going to show you the whole thing, but this is what I'm using as we walk through this tutorial. I'm using the PDF version of this, and I'm going to be scrolling through the steps to make sure I don't forget anything. Now, one of the things that you'll find in PDF patterns that you download is oftentimes there is a lot of information, because they're not just giving you the pattern, they're also giving you they're giving you lots of options, first of all, because they can, but they're also teaching you a lot. So do you remember those tests that you might have gotten and the teacher said, read the instructions all the way, or read all the way through to the end first? That's what a PDF pattern, that's really, really crucial. And I think those tricks that our teachers were playing on us really help us with a PDF pattern like this, because it really is important for you to read all the way through, because you may not be using the exact same materials or the exact same setup. Maybe you have a different sewing machine, and you can make adjustments or follow the author's suggestions to get a really good result based on the different information that's included in the pattern. So PDF patterns are a wealth of information. And I hope that you would, just explore some of the PDF patterns that might be available. I do know for sure on Patterns for Pirates, they have a great pattern called the Walk the Plank PJs, which is a one-piece pajama bottom pattern. Works great for Cloud Cuddle, by the way, but it's free. And so that would be a great one to start out with if you're new to PDF patterns in the beginning. Okay, I'm checking the comments here at the same time. But if you're watching over on YouTube, be sure to say hi to Jackie. So my friend Jackie's over there manning the comments on YouTube. Adriana is helping us with the comments over on Facebook group, but I don't want to miss anything. So if you guys have a question, I want to make sure to get it. And I see several of you guys on here with me. So thank you for joining, first of all. We're really excited to talk about this with you. Let's see. Jana, this is a really great question already out of the gate. Could you recommend a color or print to use? I'd hate to look like a giant marshmallow. I totally get that. I don't want to look like a giant marshmallow either, especially as a plus size woman. And so I was surprised by the variety of Cloud Cuddle prints that there were. And also, I didn't pick this fabric. They just said, this is what you're using. And so I got the one called Moonbeam, which I think is super fun. If you know me, I have a thing for the moon. My personal business incorporates the moon. I'm always telling my kids to go look at the moon. So this print is called Moonbeam. And while with these stars and moons and clouds, it might seem very juvenile, it's not. Like, I could wear this. I don't know that I would wear it out, but I feel very comfortable in this at home. So Moonbeam is lovely. There are some patterns that are a little bit more sophisticated. There are some gorgeous florals for the Cloud Cuddle, as well as some really masculine plaids. So lots and lots of options for everybody. If you haven't seen Cloud Cuddle, check your local quilt shop, because that's where you're going to get Cloud at. It's not available in a big box store. It's only available through an independent quilt shop, but it's really, really wonderful to use. I don't want to forget to tell you too that by watching this video and making your comments, you're also entered to win some fabric. And Adriana, will you make a note in the comments what they're going to win, and then I'll double check that. But we had talked about maybe you would win some Cloud Cuddle or some Cuddle fabric at all, but we'll draw at the end for a winner from both YouTube and Facebook. Okay, let's see, something else. Oh, Cloud Cuddle yardage, yay! So you're going to win a set of a piece of Cloud Cuddle that is big enough for you to make a Funzie Onesie or another onesie, all the way up to an adult size if you choose to. So we'll make sure that you have enough for that. Okay, let's see what else you guys are saying. Oh, I see so many of you on here. It's so nice to see you all. Yes, the neat thing about the Funzie Onesie too, from the Patterns for Pirates website, is that it comes in a couple of different cuts. So you can get a version of it that is more fitted to your body, so you don't have a lot of bulk. If you're a little bit fluffier and you need a little bit extra, there's a version called the V cut, which is a little bit more, gives you a little bit more wiggle room. And so there's those patterns have different styles of body. You can get the bundle that has the kids pattern and the adult patterns, the women's fit as well as the V fit for everybody. You can get that bundle there too. So I do love that about independent pattern designers, because if you were trying to put all of that into one paper pattern, that would be quite bulky. It wouldn't even fit. You'll notice when you get the paper pattern that the PDF tutorial just by itself takes up a lot of spaces or a lot of pages. I don't necessarily print that either because I'm trying to save paper. Even if I were to print this double-sided on regular printer paper, that would still be 20 to 30 pages double-sided because there's so much information in here. So a bundle is really good value. It's almost like having a book published, if that makes any sense. Okay, let's see. The other thing that you need to know about PDF patterns is that you can print them at home. So when you get a PDF pattern, and I'll just show you real quickly on this version, there'll be a kind of a layout, a schematic that shows you when you print it on your printer, how to put your pieces together. So think about a paper pattern. And when you get a paper pattern, I'll just pull mine out. This is that McCall's pattern. You'll get a instruction sheet. And on your instruction sheet, if I grab the right one, let's see. Oh, that's a little piece of the pattern here. You'll have all of your instructions. No, that's not the right page. Let's get the right page out of the packet. There it is. So you'll have your options that you can choose from. You'll have some general sewing tips, which are always handy to review. Even if you've been sewing for a long time, it's good to have all of that information just to remind yourself. And then you'll have the schematic for the pattern pieces, right? As well as some cutting layouts. Now, I'm not going to show you all of that because that's proprietary information and you need to go get the pattern. But these cutting layouts are super helpful because it shows you how to lay out the fabric to make the most of the yardage, or to lay out your pattern pieces to make the most of your yardage. When you're working with a PDF pattern, you're going to see something like this. This is not your fabric layout. This is just how the pieces go when you print them out and need to tape those pages together to make one big pattern piece. So let me show you something like that. So I have the Rad Patterns onesie. This is called the women's the cosplay suit is the name of the pattern. It's not just for cosplay though. You could use this for the pajamas, for a onesie, for lots and lots of, there might be many reasons that you want a cosplay suit. Hers is just called the cosplay suit. And so you can see that these are taped together. I just printed them out of my printer. I cut the size that I needed. And before I cut the size, I taped all my pieces together and then cut them out. You don't have to tape them. Teresa Coates, one of our other cuddle ambassadors, actually sews her pieces of paper together when she does a PDF. So you don't have to use tape. If you do use tape, though, this is what it would look like. And sometimes storing this is kind of a issue. Like this is a lot of paper. The paper that I use in my printer is very different than the traditional tissue paper that would be in something like a McCall's or a Simplicity pattern. So this takes up a little bit more room. Also, printer paper is, it's a little bit, you know, I've got to have creases and folds if I don't take care of this. So another thing that you can do with a PDF pattern, and this is what's super exciting, is that there's traditionally an AO file in your PDF pattern. So an AO file, well, mine's all coming apart here, is a big, this one's really big. They're like blueprints, okay? It's a blueprint sized page of the patterns that you get printed. Now you can either take the AO file over to a local copy shop if you have one. Sometimes FedEx stores will print them for you. And usually there's a release in the pattern that you can show to the printer that, yes, you are allowed to print it for your own use because you've already bought the rights to printing the pattern through a copy shop. There's another group called pdfplotting.com, and that's where I get my patterns, the AO files printed. Now, when I've got this big piece of paper here, if I were to cut the sizes, just like when I have a tissue pattern, once I've cut it, then I'm limited to only using that size from this PDF plotted page that I had to purchase in addition to purchasing the pattern. So what I'll often do when I get a page like this is I find a blank wall in my house and I'll hang this up. Now, there's no blank walls in my house. I'll hang it up outside and I'll use painter's tape to hang this piece of paper on my wall outside. I generally do this when the weather's nice. And then when I have the paper hung up, I will use something called Swedish tracing paper to trace over this to just trace the size that I want. When I do that, Swedish tracing paper is very, very thin. It feels like tissue, but it's stronger than that. I want to say it's kind of like interfacing, but it's even really not like interfacing. Interfacing is pretty strong. This will tear, but it's strong enough to not tear. It's stronger, certainly, than the tissue paper from a commercial pattern. But you get this at some place like Waywack. So Swedish tracing paper is what this is called. And people that have been tracing their patterns, or they'll even trace off of a commercially printed pattern with Swedish tracing paper to save this piece so that they can use other sizes of it. They'll just trace off the page, the size they need onto Swedish tracing paper, and then save this. So that's another way to use this AO file. Another thing that you can do with the AO file, see, we have lots of options already. We haven't even started sewing yet. We have so many options. But another thing that you can do with the AO file is you can actually use a projector if you like high-tech things. And in my sewing room, I have a pole with a projector mounted at the top of it. I'm looking at it right here just because I was messing with it the other day. And I use that to shine onto my cutting mat this exact file. So I've calibrated the image that comes out of the projector so that it's exactly the right proportions. So I match it up to my cutting mat. There's a whole procedure for this. And then I will project the AO file down onto my mat and put my fabric down. And instead of having to deal with pieces of patterns or taping, I can simply project the image onto my fabric and cut it out and then go. So when I'm doing that, I'm doing something very much like when we're making a template and then we're saving that template with all of the markings. I'm writing all of the markings and the seam allowances of my fabric as I project it on there, so I know what pieces I've got. The other thing that you can do is you can also write little notes to yourself and pin them on that piece as well. Okay, those are lots of options for how to use a PDF pattern. I hope that wasn't too confusing, but I did give you those links for some of those places if you want to learn more. Maybe one day we'll do another episode and show you actually how to set up a projector and shine it down on the table so that you can work with Cuddle that way. Okay, let me see. What else do we have here? Okay. Yeah, okay, and thank y'all so much for sharing too. That really helps us a lot at Shannon Fabrics. Jana, how do you finish your seams? We're going to talk about different ways to finish seams. So in the pattern, in a sewing pattern, they're generally just going to tell you to sew or serge it, and they may not give you a whole lot of guidance. When we're sewing with Cuddle, we like to give you a little bit more information because Cuddle's not just a regular fabric, right? So when we're sewing with Cuddle, we talk about using a 90-14 stretch needle and using a seam stitch length of about 3.5 to 4.5 millimeters long. Using that stretch needle and using a longer stitch length is how you get really good results for sewing with Cuddle or Cloud Cuddle. You would do the same thing for Cloud Cuddle that you would use for regular C3 or Lex Cuddle. When you're serging, we're also going to use a 90-14 stretch needle. Okay, you're going to use the kind for your serger. I have a Bernina L890 here, and I've got ELX 705 SUK. The SUK means stretch. 90-14 size needles in my serger right now. Okay, so I'm also lengthening my stitch length, and I'm going to show you a couple of seams so that you can decide what kind of stitch you would like to use when you're serging. So there are no wrong answers. This is your garment. And that's one of the things I love about sewing is that you can customize it to what you want and what you need. So there's not a right or wrong answer. There are lots of options within it. Now, a PDF pattern like this one, the Funzie Onesie, has lots and lots of information, and she walks you through not only seam seam finishing techniques, but also different stitches that you might have available on your sewing machine. And so I love that. I love all of the education that you get inside of a pattern. It's one of those things like you can read it one time and you can make it one time and then you go back and you do it again. And there's all these other things that you didn't know that now you can learn about that too. So it's got lots and lots of information in there. Okay. Pellon has a pattern making type of interfacing. Yes, they do. And I think the one from Pellon actually has a grid on it. So if you need help keeping things lined up, or you have some lines you need to follow, or especially if you're matching plaids, those grid lines actually may be a really good thing to use with the Pellon. Okay, I'm going to put these pieces back before I lose them in this pattern. But let me keep checking the comments in here. Yes. Oh, the projector, using a projector is really, really efficient. I feel like that saves all of the middle steps from printing and, getting when you get the PDF plotted paper, those big blueprint size papers, you either have to order them and wait, or you have to go over to a FedEx or another copy shop kind of facility, and maybe they get to it right then, or maybe you have to wait on it. With a projector, you download your pattern, you put it in your computer system and hook it up to the projector, and then you can get sewing right away. So I feel like that's a very efficient way to go. And when I'm ready to sew, I'm ready to sew. I don't want to wait around for something. Honestly, these patterns right here that I have on the AO, the ones that I got from PDF Plotting, I have not yet made all of them because it was one of the things I ordered in the moment, and now I've moved on. So I have to remember that I have these the next time I get ready to make, a shirt like that. Okay. Let's see. Oh, thank you. Del Marie, that's really great. Pellon 830 Easy Pattern is the name of the Pellon product. Thank you for putting that in there. Okay. Do you want to sew some things? Okay, let's sew. So what I have is I have the Funzie Onesie cut out in a size medium to sew for us next. Now, before we sew it, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to serge most of it except for the zipper. Do you need to serge all of it? No, you don't. The neat thing about Cuddle fabric, as y'all know, is that Cuddle doesn't fray. It doesn't ravel and it doesn't come undone. So you can have a raw edge on the inside of your garment and it's not going to come apart. So you could just sew it with a straight stitch on your sewing machine and that's fine. That's really fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And I'm not just saying that, oh, that's fine. Bless your heart. No, it's really okay. It's more than okay. It's great. If you're using a serger, though, you know that with a serger, you can finish the edges in a very neat and tidy way. The threads from the serger loopers actually wrap around the edge of the fabric, enclosing the edge of the fabric so that you don't have a raw edge inside. Some people will serge all of the edges of their fabric before they seam it together with their sewing machine. That's one way to do a finished seam on the inside. Other people will do all of the construction with their serger, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to use some stitches that are strong enough for seaming and finishing the edges at the same time. But yes, as Jackie said, because it's 100% polyester and it's a knit fabric, it doesn't fray and it doesn't unravel. Now, does Cloud Cuddle have some cuddle dust? Yes. Yes, it does. It is cuddle. The fibers are like cuddle fabric and they stick up over the backing of the fabric. And so when you cut it, there is some cuddle dust that happens. Now, full disclosure, I do not have time. I have not taken time to very carefully cut my Cloud Cuddle so that I don't get any cuddle dust. But because I'm using a serger and the cuddle dust from serging drops into my cutoff bin, I'm not worried about it like I am when I'm working with Luxe Cuddle, or actually when I'm serging, I'm not really worried about cuddle dust at all. Okay, so we'll just go back to there. But when I initially cut out all my pattern pieces, I did use a rotary cutter on my big mat. I did it in my dining room where everybody is. It's kind of a through place in my house, but I have a big table in there and I wanted to get done quickly. So I used my rotary cutter on my cutting mat to cut my pieces out from the Swedish tracing paper pieces that I had made off of the pattern. And I simply rotary cut it out. Did I have cuddle dust? I did. My plan is that after I got done, gravity would have affected my cuddle dust. It would have all dropped to the ground and I could have turned the robot vacuum cleaner on to take care of all of it. That's my general practice with Cloud Cuddle lately. It is affected by gravity, and so it just falls to the ground, and then I take care of it. Even if I need to sweep it, it's fine. It's no big deal. What happened is my husband got home before I was done in my sewing room, and I heard the vacuum cleaner going, and he had taken care of it for me. So, it did look like it had snowed in there under the table, but it was no big deal because it wasn't going anywhere. So you may have different ways that you like to deal with it. Some people I know will cut all of their pieces on their cutting mat, and then they'll take their whole cutting mat with the pieces and with any of the cuddle dust that's been created, and they'll slide the whole thing, all their pieces off into the dryer with a damp washcloth and let the spin cycle, no heat, just 5 minutes in the dryer, take care of all of the dust in the lint trap of the dryer. So that's a great way to do it. Let's see, you could do a French seam. Absolutely, Valerie, you totally could do a French seam. And a French seam is a lovely finish. Because of the bulk of this cuddle though, we'll talk a little bit about what kind of seam you might like. And so I brought a couple of samples of serged and sewn pieces. Do I have a sewn one? I made some serged ones for sure. So a serger, as we talked about before, it wraps the edges. So this is a piece of cotton fabric with serged edges. And I've got quite wide of a serger seam here. This is a 9mm seam. And this one is the 3-thread wide flat lock. That is one of my favorite seams. This is the 3-thread overlock seam. And this is a construction seam. One of the needles makes the straight line and the other 2 threads, the loopers, wrap the edge. And so it's a really nice, sturdy seam finish. This is what it looks like from the front. And this is just regular quilting cotton. And this is what it looks like on the back. It's lovely. With a 9mm stitch, I'm approximating a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So you need to know what seam allowance you're going to need to use too in order to get your pieces to fit right. This one is the same cotton fabric, but I used that 3-thread reverse flat lock stitch and I seamed with right sides together so that when I open it up and I tug on the sides a little bit, watch this. This is like magic and it's so fun to me. Now my stitches have a ladder on the front side and I'm going to tug all the way down and you can see the texture of the stitching. I have a gray thread in my serger and the back has a looper stitch. It's just loopy. It's like the outside of your yoga pants. If any of you get stretchy yoga pants, this is the same finish that they're using on those very stretchy athletic seams. So this is the reverse side. That's why it's called a reverse flat lock, because you get the ladders on one side and then the looper threads on the other side. I love this stitch. The other thing that's cool about that, and you can see it really well on the cotton, is that with a regular serger seam, here's your seam allowance underneath it right here. Do you see that? Okay, there's your seam allowance, and you'd simply press that to one side if you needed to. With the flat lock seam, let's get that tail out of the way. See the other side. My seam is flat. I don't have a seam allowance hanging off or flipping around on there. And this is a really nice seam if you're making something for somebody who may have texture issues. So I have texture issues. I don't like to feel the seams in my clothes. I don't like when I sit down, if I have a seam running down the back of my garment, I don't like to feel that inside my clothes. I may not notice on a thinner piece of fabric like quilting cotton, but on a thicker fabric like cuddle fabric or cloud fabric, cloud cuddle, I might notice this bulky seam. Okay, now this is very soft. The polyester thread with the polyester fabric, it's really not very noticeable, but when I'm feeling it without looking at it, I can feel a little bulk at the seam. If the person you're making it for is the kind of person that's always pulling the tags out of their clothes, this might be a place where you need to pay attention, because that is a texture issue. And so when I've used the flat lock seam with Cuddle or Cloud Cuddle, I can feel my seam, but instead of it sticking up or sticking out or sticking in, okay, so there's the seam allowance. And here it is looking from the inside, like all of this down here. With the flat lock seam, I don't have that bulky area in there anymore. It's just flat. And I like that. And so that's what I did with this project. If you've got a serger that has the 3-thread flat, if you've got a serger, you can do this. If you have a 4-thread serger, you can do this with your serger. With my Bernina L890, I have some very automated features in there, and all I do is select this certain stitch, and then it happens for me. So it takes care of all of the settings and the tensions, and it just makes it happen. Now, when I'm using my serger, I'm doing a couple of things, and so we'll talk about these when I get to the serger, but the things that I've always done for Cuddle fabric with my serger is I have decreased the presser foot pressure. If you don't decrease the presser foot pressure, when you're seaming something together, your serger or your sewing machine can press one side of the fabric further than the other as it comes under the presser foot, and you'll end up with length on one edge and the other one being too short. Okay, so things won't line up on the edge. This can happen with your sewing machine too. So with Cuddle fabric, because it's thick, we advise you to lessen the presser foot pressure. So that's what I've done here. The other thing that I've done is I've got those 9014 stretch needles in there, the ELX 705 SUK one. And then I've got the same thing set for my sewing machine. I have a 9014 stretch needle over there. I'm going to be using both with this pattern, and this is where you'll need to look and see what kind of pattern you've got. I've got to put a zipper in to my Cuddle fabric. Now, I've thought about this whole project all the way through. And so while my pattern says that I should be putting the zipper in first, that's not what I'm going to do first. The reason that I'm not putting a zipper in first on this pattern is because I want to make sure that my neckband hits just right on the zipper that I've chosen. If you're following the pattern as written, you may not need to be that finicky, but I'm a little picky about how things are on my neck. And so I wanted it to line up, and I want everything set, and then I want to put my zipper in at the end. And so that's what I'm going to do. The zipper that I've chosen for this is actually a sport zipper because it has the big chunky teeth. I didn't want to use a purse zipper. I mean, I could have, but I've got a sport zipper that has nylon teeth, but they're a little bit bigger and chunkier than just the zipper on a standard dress zipper. Okay. The other thing that I have for this project that's not necessarily Cuddle is I've got some rib knit fabric for the cuffs, for the sleeves, the neckband, and for the leg cuffs. So I've got rib knit, and you can get rib knit at a place like Waywack as well. They are, that's where I suggested that you get the Swedish tracing paper from, but they also sell rib knits already put together for cuffs, for collars, for ankles. It's a great resource. Okay, what else? So yeah, let's see. Jackie says she usually uses a 4-thread overlock stitch, and yes, it's a bulky seam inside. Yeah. Peggy says that she thinks the seam would be better flat. I wouldn't use a serger. That's a valid concern, and sometimes a serger seam can be a little bit more bulky. That's why I like the 3-thread flat lock. I like the wide version. There's a skinny version. Like if you use the right or the left needle, you can get a wider or a skinnier one. You can also use a 2-thread flat lock, which is a very popular version of a flat lock stitch. I like the 3-thread flat lock because I feel like I have a little bit more control with those loopers wrapping around. It's a little bit stronger. Is it a whole lot difference? It's not a whole lot of difference, but it can be useful if you're adding lots of decorative stitches in there. There's no wrong answer. Use your scraps. Try some things out and see what you feel like. Okay. Yes, you can also put those 9014 stretch needles in your serger. Absolutely. Okay, let's get started. So I'm going to move my camera or show my camera on that's on my machines, and then we're going to start seaming, and I'll show you how I do some of the seaming on this project. Now, this is an easy project to make. So yeah, we could go get a onesie at, you know, any discount store. It's not going to be made out of cloud though. It's not going to be customized to your body necessarily. And you're at the whim of whatever seam treatments that the factory decided to do. That's why I love doing a sewing project myself, because I can control all of that. Okay, this pattern has a front and a back, and you would cut 2 of each of those and then 2 sleeves. On a lot of these patterns, the different patterns, there's different pocket options, there's different hood options. Some of the more interesting patterns have different hoods where you can put like animal ears. So even if you aren't doing necessarily a cosplay suit, you could put some cute ears, and that would be super fun too. So let's get into it. So the first thing that I'm going to do with my pattern, and let me double check my pattern instructions, is I'm going to seam down the center front from where the zipper is going to end, kind of on the belly, okay, down to the bottom of the crotch. So I need to find my front pieces, and this is here's how I did my pieces. So this is Swedish tracing paper, and you see how I wrote everything about the pattern onto my Swedish tracing paper when I traced it with my Sharpie. So I have all of that there. I have the size. This is the back side. So that's not the piece I want right now. This is the front side. And I've just cut 2 mirror image pieces. And I left it all pinned together so that it was right in the right place when I got to it, which is now. So I'm going to take my pins out. Oh, also, this is something neat about Swedish tracing paper. It is really nice. And if you need to tape it together, like you need a little bit extra, you can tape it together too. Of course, you can sew it as well, but tape works nice as well. So let's get all my pins out. I'm just throwing them over here onto my desk. Okay, you may hear them clinking over there. Okay, so there's all my pins out. I'm going to set my pattern piece aside. And on my pattern, because I've done this before, I know that in the center front, let's see where it is. This is the armhole. So that's the back or the side seam. The center front has a marking for underneath the zipper to the crotch, and that is what we're going to use. Eileen asked, is the paper soft like Patternese? It actually is. It's actually a little bit softer than Patternese. In fact, I'm going to see if I can get it close so that you can hear it. Can you hear that? There's not a lot to hear. It's not as soft as a tissue. It's like a really nice feel. It's very smooth and silky. It's not like Pellon. Pellon seems to have a little bit more grab to dry skin. This doesn't. I have dry skin right now, and it feels fine to my hands. Pellon, I might have a little bit of trouble with. So let me flip my camera real quick so you can see the serger. All right, here we are. So now this is just the setup that I've got right now. Now what I have right here on my serger is I have the 3-thread, I have the overlock stitch picked. I want this to be a flat lock area. So I'm going to select my flat lock stitch, which I already know is number 5 on here. The Bernina L890 is really great because if I don't know how to set that up on my machine, it will walk me through all the steps, including playing little animations if I don't exactly know what I'm doing. So it tells me I don't have to unthread. I'm set up for a 3-thread stitch right now, and I've already got it loaded with just gray serger thread. So I don't have to do anything a whole different. I do have my cutoff bin attached, and I have the flat table. This gives me a little bit of extra table space to serge on, just like you would have if you were using your sewing machine. And that can be really helpful if you need, that stability when you're using a serger. Okay, let me get my pieces in order here because I took them apart, and now we need to make sure that I'm using that center front seam underneath the zipper area, and I'm going to put some stitches in that. Okay, now I have a leg. Here we go. Let's put these right sides together. And this is my center front seam. And I know my zipper is about 18 inches long. Your pattern will tell you how long your zipper needs to be. My zipper is 18 inches long. And so I need to have, this is my area for where I'm going to start. I'm going to put a pin over here. I'm not necessarily using a pin to hold it together, but I know that I need to go from here to the point of the center of the crotch. And so this is the seam that I need to do right here, right now. So I'm just lining everything up. When I have a pin in and I'm getting ready to serge, I am not putting my pin anywhere near the needles or the knife. And that is something that's really, really important to keep in mind, because if you serge over a pin, especially if you have the knife activated, that's a service call. And when you're in the middle of serging a project or sewing a project, especially at this time of year, the last thing that we want is to stop and take our machine in for service. So my pin is well out of the way of both the needles and the knife. Now with Cloud fabric, I'm not necessarily using a lot of pins or clips either. A cool thing about Cloud fabric is it doesn't have as much stretch as C3. It's very, very stable. It also doesn't tend to fight against itself the way that C3 or some of the Luxe Cuddles do. So I haven't found the need to do a whole lot of pinning. If you're new to serging and new to sewing with Cuddle fabric, then you definitely do want to be putting some pins or clips in to hold it in place. But you do need to mind the needle and the knife of your serger, because you absolutely do not want to run over any of those. The pins that I'm using are the Clover flower head pins. They have that nice big tip on them, not like a glass bead, like the glass head ones. And they're also a lot longer than those other pins. And so I'm less likely to lose this pin in the fluff. So what I did, and I'm going to explain what I did, even though I already did it, is I had my presser foot up, and I had my needle stop down, which is another reason I love this machine. But my needle stop is down, and I have put my fabric in underneath the presser foot where I'm going to start stitching. I have my seam width all the down under here, right under here, right there, set to 9 millimeters. That's about a ½ inch. For those of you that are engineers, it's not quite a ½ inch, but we're going to call that a ½ inch. With a garment like this is a very loose, unstructured kind of garment. You have plenty of wiggle room there. So don't get hung up about the exact millimeters of your stitch width. 9 millimeters can approximate a ½ inch seam allowance for us. Double check your pattern though, because if it matters in your pattern so that everything fits your body the way you expect to, you may need to pay a little bit more attention or do some things differently. Okay, the other thing that I'm going to do is before I do anything else, I'm going to bring my thread tail from the back up to the front and put it underneath the presser foot right here, coming forward. And that way, when I start my stitching, this tail is taken care of, and I have a locked seam at the start. So I positioned my fabric underneath the presser foot, underneath the needle, at the edge of the knife where I want to trim off just a little bit that's going to go in the thread cutoff bin. And I'm going to serge this seam right here. Okay, so let's get started. Now look, watch what happens as the knife trims away this cuddle. You might think that the knife trimming away the cuddle would be something like a rotary cutter, and then there's going to be cuddle dust everywhere. There's not. And it's just kind of magical that it works out this way. But I don't have cuddle dust flying around, which I love. I'm going to cut off my thread tail there. The other thing that I do when I finish a serger seam is I pull one of the stitches in the seam in order to lock that right there. What I do is I pull the needle thread. I just happen to grab the first one right away. It makes the tail skinny, but it also locks the thread at the end right here. This is my preferred method of dealing with these thread tails. Once I have that tight and it starts to pull into the seam, I can trim that off, or I could grab it in with a hook and pull it back through the seam. My first one, I don't have a tail at the end of it because remember, I pulled it through the front, so it's already caught underneath there. Now I can take my pins out. This is my seam. Okay, I have my seam set to 2.5. And I forgot to tell you that we actually need to lengthen the stitch length here. I'm going to lengthen mine to 4 because I like my stitches a little bit longer. So this is a lot of thread right here. We're not going to have that much on the next. But now when I open this up, I have a really pretty seam here, but watch what happens when I give it a tug. Now it's flattened out the seam, so I don't have the bulk of the seam allowance in there. Or rather, those seams have, they've moved the fabric one on top of the other instead of two sticking out right here. They've kind of rolled over on top of each other, and it's nice and flat. And I love this. This is a really great place to have a seam like that, right? On the front between your belly button and the crotch area. I don't want a lot of bulk there. I think that's really perfect. Now, another thing that you can do with Cloud, because it's Cuddle, right? You've got these fibers. If you don't necessarily want to see your stitches, if you'll simply rub the tip of it, you can use your fingers or a stiletto. You can rub the Cuddle fibers out of the seam, and they'll cover up any of those stitches. I'm going to grab my Clover Hold It Precision Stiletto. I just got this and I haven't taken it out, but I've used one before and they're really great. And I'm going to show you how to fluff those stitches up a little bit. If we can get it out of the package. Oops. There's a lot of information in here, so I don't necessarily want to get rid of this yet because I need to learn about this tool and all of the uses before I get rid of the packaging. But I'm going to get it out of the bag here. There's the opening. And we're going to investigate this little guy. Okay, so this is the Clover Hold It Precision Stiletto. It's got a nice tip. Oh, and that's nice and sturdy. When I rub it along the fibers at any of the seams, they're going to fluff those fibers up nicely for me. Okay, that's really nice. The other end is really cool because it's kind of got a flat rubbery tip. And I could use this for helping to hold things as they go through. So it has a little bit of a grip to it. I could also probably use that for pressing. Let's see. So here's my traditionally serged piece of fabric. And I could probably, yeah, well, maybe. I know I could definitely use the back side of the stiletto edge to give a nice finger press to that seam. So this is good for gripping. This is good for poking and for fluffing. So I'm happy with this. It also feels really good in my hand. It's nice and ergonomic. Okay, that's the first seam. I'm going to be putting the zipper in above this area that I just stitched. Okay, so the zipper is going to go in the center front, but I'm going to do that last. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to seam the center back pieces together. And let's get our back pieces. They fell on the floor. And again, I have to take all my pins out. And I know that this is the front, this one is the front piece now because it only has that center front stitched a little bit in the middle, not all the way up. So what I'm going to do with the back pieces is I'm going to use that same flat lock stitch and stitch the center back up. Okay. Let's get all of these pins out. Got so many. There we go. And I can set aside my pattern piece to use later. And now when I cut my fabric out, I cut it wrong sides together. It's so soft. It's really soft. Is Cloud the same height as Quilting Cuddle or C3? Cloud is actually a little bit longer than C3. So let me just show you the side here so you can see the height of the fibers. So C3 is 3 millimeters long. This is definitely longer than 3 millimeters, maybe 5 to 6 millimeters long. It's also got the pile on both sides. So this is the right side. There's some fluff, and there's the wrong side with also the fluff. So while it is thicker, it actually performs, I feel like it's a little bit easier to work with, and it performs really well underneath the serger blade, but also under a sewing machine needle as well. So here's my center back seam. And I'm going to go from the neckline to all the way down the back. Okay. And you can see I'm not, whoops. Let's see. Where is, okay, that's what's happened. I had a part where I cut close to the fold and I did not separate it from the fold. So let's fix that right now. Now I've got a good place. Let's see. Here's our center back. This is just me moving fabric away from the camera. You can't really see what I'm doing. Here's my center back. And I'm going to sew, this is the underarm seam, and I'm going to go from the center back of the neck down to the center crotch. And again, I'm going to raise my presser foot up, making sure that my pieces of fabric are together at the top, positioning it under the needle. So I'm not going to allow my blade to, or my presser foot and the feed dogs to draw the fabric in underneath the presser foot like you would with your chain piecing cotton fabric. I'm not doing that. I'm being very intentional about lifting my presser foot and positioning the fabric underneath the presser foot. Let's see, I lengthened that stitch, remember? So it's just reminding me. And then as I serge, I am using my hand on the left side to guide the fabric in. The feed dogs are doing a lot of the work. The presser foot pressure is low. It's actually at the lowest that it can go on this machine. But I need to be engaged and actively doing the sewing. If I just let the serger do its thing, I'm not going to get a stitch that makes me happy. I do need to do some of the work. So I'm using my left hand here. I've got my right hand in front of me, and I'm giving this some tension. So I'm kind of have my thumb on top, my fingers underneath here. I've got everything lined up right. I'm giving this a little bit of tension. I'm not yanking on it. I'm just controlling it. And then I'm also guiding the fabric with this hand, with my left hand, on the table to help the fabric go through well underneath the serger. I'm also watching the knife of my serger. I'm not watching the needles. So when you're sewing, you should be watching, you know, a spot on your presser foot or on the bed of your machine. When I'm serging, I'm not watching the needles either. I'm either watching a place on the foot where I have things lined up, or I'm watching the knife. So for me right here, the knife is saying that's the edge of your fabric, and it's trimming off, you know, a little bit, not a whole lot, but just a little bit, enough to give me a nice clean finish. That's a lot to tell you all about just, you know, one little seam here. But I am using a lot of my body to do this. I'm not just letting the machine do it. This is me. This is my project, and I'm the one in control of it. Giving it some of my own, you know, I am using my body to do this. So I'm coming around to the curve. And so a curve with the serger, I need to be thinking about where my knife is. And so I don't necessarily want my knife to slice into my fabric. So as I curve, I'm curving into the knife. That is my guide. That's where I'm going. See how it's just curving right off? And I love it. So all of those things, like you might think, well, we just did a whole bunch of cutting and there should be cuddle dust everywhere. It's not. It's all in here. And because I'm doing cloud, you know, I could just empty this pretty regularly and get rid of it. And it's not a big deal. There is not cloud all over my sewing room just because I've been cutting it off. Okay. When I'm also serging, I need to be double checking both sides of my seam. So this was the back side, and it looks good all the way up. But I noticed that one place right here, I didn't quite catch the back side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this again underneath the presser foot, manipulating that edge right there so that it is at the edge and I can see what I'm doing. And I'm just going to go back over it. Okay, so now I've caught that one. And again, because I have that tail from the beginning, I'm going to find a needle thread and I'm going to pull that one to kind of tighten up and lock those stitches. I can feel that that happens. So let's cut that off. And I'm not worried about those stitches unraveling now because I locked that thread. I'll show you at the end here too. So here's my tail with my serger threads. And I'm simply going to grab the one that's the needle. I can tell that I got it. And when I do that, did you see how it tightened that right there? That's locking the needle stitches and everything. So it's not going to come apart now. Now, if you're crossing this with another seam, if you're crossing your serger stitches with another seam, you don't necessarily have to lock the stitches. I'm just doing it to show you how to do it. Okay, this was a flat lock seam here, right? So I can now tug on each side gently. I'm not yanking, but I am tugging gently on each side of the serger seam so that my ladders come out and so that the left and right sides of the fabric on the back side lay on top of each other instead of against each other, making a bulky seam. So this just makes them pull out together. And I could spend time later flipping them out if I wanted to, but I'm really happy with that. There's our center back seam. Okay, so now we need to put our fronts and backs together at the shoulders. So let's do that real quickly. This is the front piece I did. And let's get the shoulder tops. I've got a left shoulder and a right shoulder. And I could pin these to keep them straight so I could do it all at once. So let's do that. Let's just put a pin in it right here to keep those sides together. And then here's the other side. The other thing to keep in mind when you're serging or sewing with Cuddle fabric is that the fabric actually has weight to it. It's a lot heavier per yard than quilting cotton. This has weight, and you can already see as I'm just holding it right here, the drape of the fabric is very affected by gravity. So that is a lot of weight. And when I'm serging with Cuddle or sewing with Cuddle, if it's pulling against the machine, if it's pulling this way, we're not going to get a quality stitch like you'll want. And so what I need to do is I need to be putting my fabric either in my lap or off on a table, you know, to the side of the machine. For me, having a clear flat area is always a problem. So I will often pull up a chair so that my fabric is not hanging down, you know, off into the void. I do want to position this up into the serger under the needle. Make sure that my seams are lined up well. See how my pin is way over here? My pin is way over here. There's one shoulder done. And here's the other one because I've already got it pinned. It's ready to go. Position it underneath the presser foot. Serge this shoulder seam. Okay, now my shoulder seams are done. And again, just like before, you can see the wrong side here. I'm going to tug on that. And now that seam flattened out just beautifully. Here's the front side. Okay, we've got another shoulder over here. Let me show you that one. So there's our little seam. This is the wrong side of the fabric. I'm just going to tug it just a bit, and you'll see how that flattens out. It's just perfect. Helen, I love the way you said that. Yeah, you can't. Yes, having a serger just makes sewing a really a different experience. I feel like it levels up. It levels up everything if you can have some serging in your life. Okay, now I've got a thread tail here. Let me take care of that just so it's not in the way later. My pen magnetic itself to the scissors. Here's another thread tail. Let's trim that one off. Get all those out of the way. Okay, the next thing that I need to do is I need to put on the sleeves. So in order to put on the sleeves, this is my shoulder seam, and I'm going to use the sleeve that I've already cut out, and these sleeves have a front and a back. So there were notches in the pattern that I forgot to cut on my pattern pieces, but I cut them on my sleeve pieces. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to line my notch up to the center seam, and then I'm going to line up the edges to where the sleeve is supposed to end. I am going to use some pins here because I do want the sleeve to be in correctly, and I don't want it to wiggle around on me. The Cloud Cuddle doesn't really wiggle, so it's not a terrible thing, but it can happen. So I'm just going to take care and pay attention. So this is my sleeve edge here. This is the front, and this is the back on this side. So I'm going to get my sleeve that has this one right here, and I'm going to go ahead and pin my notch. I'm going to pin close, not right up to it. I'm not pinning right here. I'm pinning back here. Okay. And then this is the front. And so I'm going to make sure that the corner matches the underarm corner right there. Put a pin back here. Of course, I could use my Wonder Clips as well. If you're a clipper, that works great. If you're a pinner, then this works great. So there's lots of ways to get the same result based on what you have and what you like using. Okay, and I'm going to put this pin here just to hold those together. Now, I've got my sleeve piece on top, which means that my underneath piece has a curve underneath it that I can't see. It's difficult to see in the camera. So there's a curve back here. And so what I need is I need to mind that back curve and always be adjusting as I go down the seam. So I'm going to go a little bit slower than I was going before, but still guiding my seam, making sure that I get to the notch at the right time. But I'm making sure that my back pieces and front pieces are lined up, and I'm easing this curve, this convex curve, into the concave curve that's underneath. That's a lot of words to say that I'm making sure that my edges match up. Okay, so I'm just taking my time. I know that this part has to match up right here, so I don't want this to get away from me. And I'm at the top point. Okay, so I'm always adjusting, and I can feel that I've got some bunchiness up here underneath here. I don't want to get that caught in the serger thread because that's a lot of stitches to have to unpick if you have to do that. But I am adjusting. And so see, there's my pin sitting on top of my presser foot. I want to make sure I take care of that. And then as I go along, I am adjusting the whole way down. Because Cloud Cuddle doesn't have a whole lot of strip, I can do this without having a whole lot of pins or clips. Again, there's the thread tail. And when I pull it, it tightens up that edge. And I can take those pins out. Let me double check. It looks like right here at the top, I didn't quite catch the seam. So if there's a place where you didn't catch the seam, just go back over it. And that was where I was adjusting. I could feel it underneath. I just couldn't see it. I was kind of sewing blind. Now I've got both sides. I'm going to take care of that tail right there. Just pull it until I get the needle one. Sometimes it's kind of a game to find out which of these threads is the needle thread and which ones are the looper threads, but it's okay. Just work at it. There's no race. There it goes. See how it starts tightening those up? That was the needle right there. Okay, that was one sleeve. I'm not going to put the other sleeve in. We're just going to work on this one side right here. Let's see if I can scoot back so you can see a little bit more of this. Okay, so there's the sleeve in. I can tug on it. You see the top edge of the sleeve there? I'm going to tug on it and tug this nice seam out. This is the intersection at the top of the sleeve. Super nice, super flat. If I work it there, you can see the roundness of the sleeve cap right there. It is really hard to see that on camera, but I want you to see just how lovely of a finish that is. That's a beautiful sleeve inset, and I'm very happy with that. And I know that whoever's wearing this will not have a bulky area to upset them right there. Okay, I've got one sleeve on. I'm not going to do the other sleeve just to save time, but I am going to show you how we do the side seams on this one. So the next thing to do is put the other sleeve in, and then we're going to sew both side seams down. We're going to sew from the wrist, this is the wrist, all the way down underneath the arm. So here's the seam where we just put the, let's get those together. This is our underarm seam right here. And then we're going to go all the way down the rest of the body. Now, you may have chosen the version where you put on the side seam pockets. And if you're doing that, then you would go around your pockets. But we're going to go all the way down from the wrist, all the way down to the ankle. Peggy asked, can we rewatch this later? Yes, you absolutely can. Let's see. I love my serger that it's older, and I don't know if it does the flat lock. It actually does. You look in your manual and see what the instructions are for your flat lock seam. If you've got 4 threads on your serger, or actually if you have 3 threads, you can do a flat lock stitch. So there's different kinds of flat locks. You can do a 3-thread flat lock, a 2-thread flat lock. There isn't really a 4-thread flat lock because the other needle, the 4-thread needle, is a safety stitch. It has an extra line of stitching in it. So there's not a 4-thread flat lock, but you can do it with a 3-thread or a 2-thread. And this one just has those stitches and all their stuff built into it. Okay, so I'm just serging down the side of the arm. When I get to this angle underneath the arm, you can see how this is kind of it's more than a 45-degree angle, but it is actually an angle. With this machine, I've got my needle so that it stops down. Just like when you're patchworking on your sewing machine, I can stop with the needle down. And when I get to the intersection of the area where the angle is, I'm going to make this angle straight. And I'm going to keep stitching down a straight line. I've got my needle down, I'm raising my presser foot, and I'm actually going to maneuver my fabric so that I have an actual fold right here at the edge. And now I have a straight line that I'm going to keep stitching on. And this way, I will have a nice intersection without having a gap underneath. Now that I'm past the seam, I'm going to let that fold relax at the back of the presser foot, put my foot down, and I can continue all the way down the side of the, all the way down the side underneath the arm to the ankle. So there's not a whole lot of seams you can see in this project. They're just long seams because, you know, this is for an adult-sized body. Don't feel bad about, you know, if you need to stop and reposition things as you serge. That will help you get, you know, really good placement, really good seams. And I would rather stop and go slow as I'm serging than power through and then have places where I've missed and have to go back in. So I don't mind going slow just to make sure that I get a good quality seam there. Sew off the edge. And now I'm done with that long side seam. Okay. And the same thing, like I could do it now, I could do it later. I'm just going to open that up just a little bit so that I can work on the seam that's underneath the legs. Now I didn't put the other side together and I didn't put that seam on, but I can put a little bit of a seam down the inside corner of the leg because I do want to show you how to put the cuffs on. And because that's a key part of this garment is those knitted cuffs. So I'm just going to go up just a little bit on the leg. I can also, let's go off there. Move those stitches, and I'll finish that part later. I've already got one that's already finished, but I want to show you how to put the cuffs on. So here's the inside leg. So this is my leg part right here. You can see that I didn't quite line everything up just right there. So let's straighten this out. Just neaten it up. And now I have my bottom edge. Now this is going to be contained in another seam. So I could, you know, lock that, but I'm just going to cut it off for now. And now I've got my cuffs. So I've already stitched up just to save time. This is an arm. This is one that's not stitched. This is an arm sleeve cuff. And then these are the ankle cuffs, right? And there I just chain piece them. This is using a rib knit, kind of like a jersey. It's a little bit thicker, a little bit more substantial than jersey. It has a nice snapback. And I love using something like this for cuffs because it's softer and it's very thin and easy to work with. I've stitched them right side together, and then I'm going to fold it with that seam inside. I didn't use a flat lock stitch, so that is some bulk there. That's okay. You could use a skinnier stitch so you don't have so much bulk there. You could seam it on a sewing machine and that would be fine too. But now I've got a nice cuff. Do you see how I just folded that wrong sides together? So the seam is on the inside. Here's my serger tails. You can see them peeking out. This is the edge I'm going to stitch onto the cuff. And this is that bottom leg. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these right sides together. Both of the sides of the cuff are the right side. But I want it to be stitched to the right side of the garment. And so for me, the way my brain works, I'm going to pin it with the cuddle on the top and the smooth knit cuff on the inside. And I've got my marking, noticing where my centers are. And I'm going to put that other center edge against the seam on the other side. And again, I'm putting a pin way out, but close enough to hold this all together. And if you don't want to use your serger for this, that's okay. You can use your sewing machine and then go over it again with your serger. You can see how the knitted cuff is much smaller than the opening of the leg. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to find the center of these areas of this, the front and back of the leg, and match it to the center part of that middle cuff part. The cuff is super stretchy. It's got a little bit of lycra in it, so it stretches really well. So I'm going to stretch it to meet the edges there. Now, I'm going to be stretching while I sew. That is another thing that you'll need to make sure you've got that stretch needle in, because it'll work better with a stretch fabric too. Okay, so I've got my cuff all pinned in place. Ella, this would be a fabulous gift for somebody who just had a baby. This is a really, really great. It's so soft and cuddly. It's just so cuddly. The baby's going to need one too. On this machine, I can take this table off, and then I have a free arm. So I'm going to do that now. Okay, so I've taken the table off, and now I have the free arm that I could put this cuff on with. And if you like using a free arm, that is something you could do. If you want to sew it, in the round, you don't have to use the free arm. Because of the angle that I'm sitting, this is a little awkward. And so I'm going to get this done quickly and then show you how it comes out on my finished one. But as I'm stitching, I am stretching the cuff underneath here. So my cuddle is not stretched. It doesn't stretch. But I am stretching. I'm stretching that cuff underneath there. Stretching, 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 and sewing so that it meets the outside piece all the way around. The free arm for this is really, really nice. But again, before we had free arm sewing machines, there are ways to put a cuff in without, using the free arm too. And then I'm simply going to veer off there. There's the end of my serger tail. I am going to find, whoops, there it is. I am going to find that needle thread and tighten that one up. Do you see? Watch how it goes. See how it just pulls those stitches in so nicely right there? Where that overlap is, that's locked. It's not going to come out. Okay. And now my cuff is on. There's my cuff. It's on. This is the ankle. I have some extra threads here. Let's get rid of those. Oh, they were just stuck there. Take out my pins. This is what the inside of the cuff looks like. See that? It's wavy because I stretched it. When I let it relax, it'll be relaxed. This is the inside. And now let me show you the outside. So I'm going to flip this right side out. And there's the outside. Isn't that nice? Who said they need to upgrade their serger? Jackie. Jackie, now's a great time to upgrade your serger because Bernina's having some great deals. You know what I did? I forgot to change this. This is still a flat lock stitch. So watch when I tug it. Now my cuff, you can see a lot of that stitching. Now there's nothing wrong with that. This is actually good. I was going to show you how to use a regular stitch on the serger, but I'm actually glad I did that. Now I have to remember to do that on all the other parts too. But when I tug on that, look how nice that is. And now my cuff, ooh, that is nice. Now my cuff doesn't have any bulk in that seam. Okay, that's serendipitous as well. Nice and flat on the inside, nice and flat on the outside. Okay, so maybe that wasn't a mistake. Maybe that was a happy accident. All right. Does it relax after washing? Yes, it will. Well, what do you mean? Does it relax after washing? Does the fabric relax or the stitching relax? The stretchy parts will kind of pull back up. You can also get the elastic and a stretchy fabric to, if you stretch it out of shape while you're sewing, if you'll steam it a little bit with an iron, then you can get it to snap back into place too. Okay, so there's our cuff. That's how we do a cuff. There's 4 of these. There's 2 on the legs and 2 on the arms. Let's put in the zipper. I'm going to scoot the camera just a little bit so that you can see on my sewing machine. And that's the last part that we're going to do, because there are so many options for the neckline treatment that you get to pick. And whether you're putting on a hood or you're putting a neck band on it or some kind of collar, there's just so many different ways that you can go there, that we want you to have the freedom to do your onesie the way you want to do it. So let me move this and let's look at the sewing machine over here. The attached cuff. Yeah, the attached cuff will relax a little bit when you get done, when you wash it. It'll snap back into shape. So the ankle cuffs are quite a bit bigger than the sleeve cuffs. So yeah, that'll straighten up. It'll be nice and smooth once you give it some steam or some heat so that the elastic can do its thing. Okay, let's put our zipper in, because I think that's something people have questions about, especially with Cloud Cuddle or regular Cuddle. Can you use a zipper? Can you put a zipper in? Yes, the answer is yes. Yes, you can. So this is my front. Let's turn it all right side out so we can get, well, it needs to be inside out so we can do the zipper. Okay. And because I didn't put that other arm in, I want to make sure that I put the zipper in the front and not along the side. So I've got my zipper here. Let's move this just a tiny bit. There we go. And I have the lights low in here so that the machines wouldn't blow out. So it's hard to kind of see. So on my onesie right here, the center front opening is where we need to put the zipper. Okay. So let's tuck that back in. That's one of the side pieces. So this is our center front opening. And what we need to do is we need to put our zipper in. And my zipper's creamy, not white, but that's okay. And I want to put it in with the teeth and the zipper pull on the outside. So when I'm doing a zipper on Cuddle, there's a couple of different things you can do. And the nice thing about the Patterns for Pirates pattern is that she shows you some different ways to do a zipper treatment. You could put a facing on your zipper so that if you're using something that's not Cloud, maybe you're using something that's Luxe and you have a little bit more fluff, that some of that fluff won't get stuck in your zipper. She has a little facing pattern piece that you could put on there. For me, what I'm simply going to do is I'm going to pin one side of my zipper to the opening all the way down, and I'm going to leave this part at the top. I don't want to get rid of the zipper tape at the top. Okay, so I'm going to pin this down at the top. And I'm simply going to pin my zipper right side to my Cloud. And I'm just putting some pins in strategically as I go down. Okay. And I'm going to pin. Now, because I'm using my sewing machine, my pins are right at the edge. Can you put your zipper in with your cover stitch? You absolutely can. I could take the Bernina L890 and switch it over to a chain stitch, so it's a single straight stitch, and then put my zipper in that way. But I'm just going to use my sewing machine just to show you how it's done over there. You can see how it's pinned, nice flat, all the way down. This is the right side of the Cuddle to the right side of the zipper. So the little tab is there. And as I sew, I'm going to move the zipper slider out of the way so that I don't have the bulk of it to work around. Okay. So as I get this piece sewn on, I'm going to reposition the slider so that it's not in my way. But I'm going to sew right down the middle of the zipper tape on each side. You'll notice that I don't have a zipper foot on my sewing machine. It's just my regular sewing foot. And that's because I put it somewhere safe. And I don't know exactly where that safe place is. So you can use a regular sewing foot to put your zipper on. As I get started here, I've got a longer stitch length. So I want to make sure that I've got it at about a 4mm long stitch length. And I've got a regular straight stitch selected. And I'm simply going to sew down the middle of my zipper. Now, I also have my presser foot pressure. I should adjust that so that it's less as well. If your presser foot is pushing down on your fabric, then it is going to be causing bunching, and it's not going to feed evenly. So I also have my machine set stop with the needle down in the fabric. And that way, when I stop, I don't have to reposition my fabric, and I don't have a line that kind of veers off and is willy-nilly. I can still keep my same line that I'm stitching. And as I get up to the slider, I'm going to raise my presser foot, move my slider out of the way. And this is a bigger zipper, so it has a bigger slider. And now I can keep on stitching down the side of my fabric and just stitch that down. If you want to, you could put some double-sided tape on your zipper, as long as it's the kind that you can sew through and it doesn't cause a your needle to get sticky. Or if it causes your needle to get sticky, Schmetz has a great non-stick needle that you could use for your sewing machine as well. So that's another option. Lots of ways to get the thing you want out of what you're sewing. And now I've got that zipper side stitched in, and I'm just going to go down here all the way down almost to the bottom. Did I run out of bobbin thread? I did. I ran out of, no, I didn't. Thought I might run out of bobbin thread. Now my zipper is in. Okay. I'm going to flip it. There's the right side of my zipper. And there's the side right here. Okay. So this is going top down. And then I'm going to top stitch this side down as well. Same thing. I'm going to move my zipper pull out of the way. And I'm kind of tugging on the cloud. Not a whole lot, just a little bit. I'm tugging on the Cloud Cuddle just to pull it away from the teeth of the zipper. And once I get, far enough down here, I'm going to raise my presser foot with the needle down in the machine, move my zipper pull up past the presser foot. And again, you can see where the onesie is pulling away from me because it wants to drip off my table. So I've got to put it in my lap, put it up to the side, and I'm just top stitching that down. All right. So this is what the zipper looks like on one side. See how nice and top stitched that is? Now on this pattern, you will see the zipper teeth in between each side. So what I would do next is I would do the same thing up, matching my teeth or my tape to the top edge, pinning it down the second side, flipping and top stitching it just like that. So let me show you how that looks on this one. So this is the original one I did. There it is. I was like, where's the top? Here's the top. Here's the tape, the zipper. This one has a gray zipper in it. I had a place where I had to take it out, so I have some threads that I need to take care of. But that is the top stitched zipper in. And when I got to the bottom, you can see how it has that little rectangle there. Okay, because I had that flat lock stitch, I just curled it in. What size zipper is it? I used a sport separating zipper. The pattern requires a length of zipper, but you can choose what size zipper you wanted. I wanted this chunky effect with the bulky teeth. And I didn't want I don't like the zipper pulls on those dress zippers because this isn't a dress. It's a chunky pajamas. So I thought this chunkier zipper pull would be nicer to have on this. But you have lots of options. So what size zipper? Tisha, you should get you a serger. I say that to everybody. You should get us. You need a serger. Let's see. So that's how it goes. And then the collar is the same way that you do the cuffs, except you're going to put this in flat. It's all around the top. And I used a regular 3-thread overlock stitch. I did not use the flat lock stitch. I just used the 3-thread overlock. So I do have a little seam allowance right there. See that? I could take my sewing machine and stitch that down and have a bit of top stitching on this. If you're top stitching on a knit, you need to stretch a little bit as you sew, but then you need to steam it so that the ripples from stretching and sewing at the same time kind of relax and go back together. Let me go back to this camera because I want to answer your questions. And that, but you can see how on this one, it's all done. I've got my sleeves with their cuffs. Okay, there's my cuffs on the sleeves. This is I used a regular 3-thread overlock on the sleeves. So I do have a seam there. On this one that I forgot to change my stitch. Where's that cuff? Down here at the bottom. This is the flat lock cuff. Okay, you can see the little flat lock ladder on it because I did them right sides together. I actually really like that. I want to steam that and get that, to relax and be the right thing. And I think that actually is a cool effect too. So there's not a wrong answer. It's what you want to do. What else do you need to know? Ella, yeah, you could use the Lux Cuddle for this. You absolutely can. In fact, and that's why when I was looking at patterns, the costume pattern came to my head because of onesies functionally the same thing as the costume onesie. When you look at the shape of the pieces, it's the same thing functionally. Now, well, let's talk a little bit about that though, because sometimes your pattern will be written for stretch fabric and Cloud Cuddle doesn't stretch. And so you'll need to know, does the pattern require a stretch fabric? This McCall's pattern does require a stretch fabric. In fact, there's a little gauge on the back of it, and it tells you how much your fabric needs to stretch in order for this pattern to work and fit the size body that you make the pattern for. This one doesn't require a stretch fabric. The Patterns for Pirates one talks a lot about stretch versus non-stretch, and she even has so many examples in her Facebook group. She's got a link for it in the pattern and can show you if you use stretch fabric, this is how it looks. Same size done with non-stretch fabric, and this is how it looks. It's going to feel different. You may need to calculate a little bit more room, or you could do what I do and just pick a pattern that's made for a non-stretch fabric like Cloud. And that's what I did. If you're going to use C3, you've got a little bit more stretch and you've got some more wiggle room. Or Lux Cuddle, obviously, they have a little bit more stretch. Not a whole lot. They're considered stable knits. Cloud is obviously a very stable knit. It does not stretch. Quilting Cuddle does not stretch. I mean, it does stretch, but it pops back. I don't know that I would use Quilting Cuddle for this project. Also, Quilting Cuddle is 45 inches wide and Cloud is 60 inches wide. So most of these patterns are going to require you to use a 60-inch wide fabric. And if you do it with a 45-inch wide fabric, then you're going to have to recalculate because you won't have enough width across the fabric to get, to just use that yardage. The other thing, though, that would be fun to do is Shannon Fabrics has a new fabric called Marshmallow. And if you go into the Facebook group, you will see some projects starting to pop up with Marshmallow. And Marshmallow is a very, very stretchy cuddle that y'all are going to love. We're going to do some videos with Marshmallow. It's fantastic. It also makes a very great onesie. In fact, one of our ambassadors, Emily Misson, made a onesie out of Marshmallow. And it's just really lovely. It's a super luxurious velour-ish kind of cuddle. It's fantastic. It's great for that. Let's see. What else do you need to know about a onesie? I think, don't overthink it. Go make a onesie. Pick the seam. Think about the pattern that you're going to use. Check out some of the tutorials from the pattern designer that you get the pattern from and see what they say just about the garment construction. And then think about how you could incorporate Cuddle into it. That's what I've done. I've done patterns like this before I used Cuddle. And so I'm just taking those same things and now translating them into Cuddle and then the serger for you. So I hope that you make some beautiful things for your family or yourself this holiday season. There's no limit to what you can make. Okay, I need to tell you about some winners because I always forget to do that. But I'm sure that we have a couple of winners that Adriana will get us. Oh, there we go. Oh, we've got 3. Okay, so Donna Morgan, Cindy Shelley, and Jody Laster Wilson. Would you send us an email to info@shannonfabrics.com? Put your name, your shipping info, and your phone number in there. And in the subject line, write live winner, and we'll get you your own batch of Cloud Cuddles so that you can make a onesie for yourself or for a loved one for this holiday season. You're going to love working with Cloud. Go find it at your local quilt shop. Ask them to carry it. And you can even show them the shannonfabrics.com website with all of the different variations of Cloud Cuddle and tell them which one you want them to carry. Thank you all so much for watching. We hope that you have a delightful season of making and getting ready for the holidays and that you all stay safe and healthy. Happy sewing!